South Korea will collapse. Yup, you heard that right. At its current rate, Korea is expected to go from a population of nearly 52 million to 34 million, a loss of over 30% in less than 50 years. Over that period, Korea will lose 50% of its workforce and have a median age of 60. Imagine that, a country where the average person is retired. With the lowest fertility rate in the world, nearly 73% below the replacement rate of 2.1, Korea is on a dangerous path to self-destruction. But how did they get here? Why is no one in Korea having kids? And most importantly, what will this mean for the future of Korea? This is Korea, the most inevitable collapse in human history. Inspired by the success of West Germany, Korea wanted to shift away from an import substitution economy to an export-led economy. To accomplish this, they leaned into Confucius values of hard work, collectivism, and hierarchy. During Korea's rapid industrialization from the 1960s to 1980s, a strong emphasis was placed on hard work and long hours as a driver for national development, not personal success. This collectivist leaning was summarized with the concept of Myalsa Bonggong, which roughly means destroy your personal life and devote yourself for the betterment of your community. Moreover, Korea was under strict military rule, meaning the promotion of these ideals was heavy-handed and enforced. Not only this, but deeply ingrained values of hierarchy within both Korean culture and military culture promoted a work environment focused on long hours instead of productivity. Workers showed deference to authority and participated in after-work social activities to show loyalty and build goodwill with superiors. The infamous Hoshig, where Koreans work until 8, 9, 10 p.m. and then go out until 1, 2, 3, 4 a.m. or as long as their boss is still out. And for all of this work, the question is, are Koreans making bank? Not at all. Koreans rank 19 among OECD countries for wages, which is $5,000 below the OECD average. That said, there are asterisks. Those who work for large corporations like Samsung can make a lot more money, nearly double the average at $87,000 a year, which is 8.2% higher than the EU average. So naturally, everyone and their cat wants to work at these companies. But how do you get a job there? Specs. To get a job at a conglomerate like Samsung, individuals need specs, which include things like academic degrees, language proficiency certificates, internships, volunteer experiences, extracurricular activities, and awards. This means Koreans value education deeply, as it's the path to unlock a prosperous future. In fact, 66% of children under 3 are enrolled in early education programs, the highest in the OECD. 98% of Koreans have a secondary diploma. 70% of Koreans have a post-secondary diploma, and the list goes on. But staying competitive in Korea doesn't stop at school or work. You have to stay informed too. Everyone in Korea is chasing an edge. For the university exam, for the corporate interview, though it may seem that hard work is the only thing that's killing Korea's demographics, there's actually something else. Korea is known to be a relatively affordable country to live in. In fact, Seoul is one of the most affordable major cities in the entire world and was ranked first in a cost of living survey of over 40 major cities. But then why are 20% of Koreans between 19 and 39 living with a debt-to-income ratio of 300%? Something unseen in the OECD, something unseen in the Western world. A lot of the statistics about Korea are misleading and don't reflect the entire picture. For starters, Korea's rental market is very different from the US and most Western countries. Historically, 70% of rentals in Seoul followed a system called jeonse. In this system, tenants paid no rent. Instead, they were solely responsible for utilities and maintenance. Sounds incredible, right? No, there is a very, very aggressive catch. Instead of paying rent, tenants put down a deposit equivalent to 50 to 80% the value of the property. Not 50 to 80% the value of the rental contract, no, the value of the property. That means if you were renting a unit that was worth $500,000, you would put down a deposit on day one of over $250,000. As you can imagine, this places a lot of burden on renters, especially young renters who haven't saved up enough to pay such exorbitant prices. Recently though, 50% of rentals have shifted to wolse, which is more similar to renting. However, even here, tenants generally still provide a significant deposit, upwards of 12 months of rent. Again, this places significant financial strain. But let's assume that you only worry about rent and you don't put up a ridiculous deposit. Is it affordable to have kids? Absolutely not. Let's actually unpack this data. Koreans who work at a chaebol or a large Korean conglomerate in Seoul that live modestly can save about $3,000 per month after rent and groceries. Not bad. But chaebols only comprise 25% of all employment in Korea, and not all chaebol jobs pay very well. If you are like the vast majority of Koreans working at a small to medium-sized enterprise, then you will likely save around $900 a month, which again sounds feasible, but there's a kicker. Remember how we mentioned that Korea is competitive, especially when it comes to education? Well, in Korea, there are these things called Hagwon. Hagwons are private for-profit after-school academies. They help prepare students for college, entrance exams, English exams, employment exams, and more. All in all, the private education sector in Korea represents a nearly $19 billion industry. Which begs the question, how expensive are these? Entry-level Hagwons are about $300 per month. More active ones jump to $700 to $1,000 per month, and elite Hagwons can exceed well over $2,000 a month. This means that $900 of disposable income nearly vanishes with just one child, leaving no money for recreation, travel, dining out, and more. This leaves would-be parents with a critical decision: kids or no kids. By this point, it should be abundantly clear why Korea is having a demographic crisis. They work too hard and don't make enough. But what about Korean society and generally their culture? This too is a problem. Recently, Korea has seen a rise in no-kid zones, which explicitly ban children. Google Maps now shows 459 cafes and restaurants across Korea that don't even allow kids, and Jeju Research Institute identified an additional 93. The crazy part about this, 62% of Koreans find this acceptable. In a world that is becoming increasingly hostile to children, why would-be parents want to be parents? As society ages and people become more accustomed to places without kids, the willingness for society to reopen itself to their noise and chaos declines and becomes almost impossible to reverse. And unfortunately, it doesn't just end there. Korean culture is also deeply patriarchal. For example, in dual-income households, women spend over 3 hours per day on household chores, whereas men spend 54 minutes. Even in homes where only the wife works, women still do more housework. 2.5 hours versus 1 hour and 59 minutes. Confucian values, which prescribe a strict male breadwinner model and women's subordination, remain deeply influential. This extends to child-rearing, which is seen as a woman's exclusive duty. In fact, 72% of Koreans agreed that a man who stays home to look after children is less of a man. That is 3 times the global average and higher than conservative countries like India. And the craziest part, the survey of Koreans includes women. No wonder then women don't want to have kids. Women who are keen to have a life outside the home would be forced to rear children, take care of the home, and potentially work to make ends meet. The imbalance is so bad, some women are going on a birth strike. And in more extreme cases, they're joining a growing movement referred to as the 4B movement. The 4Bs represent no heterosexual marriage, no childbirth, no dating, and no heterosexual. Although still small, the 4B movement speaks volumes to the depth of the issue in Korea. The high standards and stress placed on women are almost unimaginable. They are expected to work long hours, take care of the home, take care of the kids, put up with abuse, put up with subordination, and look pretty and smile while doing it. Sounds like a pretty raw deal. So how can this be fixed? The Korean government, to their credit, has been making aggressive efforts to turn the tide. They've expanded parental leave, introduced childcare incentives including education subsidies and cost of living support. They have hosted matchmaking and social events in multiple cities across the country and much more. But despite these efforts, South Korea's fertility rate remains the lowest in the world, with only a slight uptick last year. But the problem isn't simply population, it's working age. With 20% of the population already over the age of 65, who is going to take care of the aging population? At this rate, nearly 50% of Korea will be over the age of 65 in 2070. So what will society look like? Will there be schools, playgrounds, restaurants, bars, clubs, or will it just be a glorified old age home? In our view, South Korea is likely doomed.